Welcome back to part 2 of my 7mm-08 versus the 270 Winchester at 1,000 yards. I apologize for the delay. It's been a few months, probably about 4.5 months since I uploaded part 1. Just got a little bit busy and time slipped away, and I finally am getting around to this. I hope you stick around and enjoy the video. Please subscribe. I would love to get some feedback from you, so please leave a comment below. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Appreciate any and all comments, questions. If you have a request of a comparison that I do, please let me know. I have a couple that I've been requested to do. So I have a few videos in the lineup that I'm planning on doing, and I will be spending more time on this channel in the next few months getting caught up and getting those videos done. This is a comparison of ballistics data taken from load data. This isn't my opinion. I haven't changed the data or anything. The only thing I'm doing is I take the load data that's available from Hornady, from Nosler, and I take the recoil data from Chuck Hawk's recoil table. I use the Federal Premium Ballistics calculator, and then I use a basic average calculator, calculatorsoup.com, to get the results that I have. I do my best to make sure it's as accurate as possible going off of the data that is available. I do make mistakes occasionally. I try to correct those. Feel free to point them out if you do see any in the video. I will do the best to correct those as I move forward. But this is just a comparison of ballistics data. There's no shooting here. If you love reloading and you want to see the numbers that these calibers can produce, then stick around. At the end of the video, I do an average, so you can see the average for the 270 at 1,000 yards, how much energy it has. I also did 200 yards for the 270, and then I did the average bullet drop. I felt that was important with this comparison because the 270 is a very flat shooting gun. The 7mm-08 is flat as well, but it's not as flat as the 270. Let's move forward here. We'll jump to recoil. Recoil is a big difference between these two calibers. The 270 is 17.1 pounds of recoil, foot-pounds of recoil, and it's a velocity of 11.7, so that's how fast the gun is moving back towards you. These are 8-pound rifles. You can see that on the Chuck Hawk's data. Same with these. These 7.5 and 8 pounds as well on these. 12.1, 12.6 respectively for these down here. So the 7mm-08 is a very low recoiling gun. I personally really like the 7mm-08. I own that caliber. That's what I hunt with, and I really enjoy shooting it because of the low recoil and its efficiency in reloading. It uses about 10 to 20% less powder to reload than the 270 does, so it's a little bit cheaper to reload. Moving on to hand loads, I started with the Hornady ELDX line. This is a newer line. I really like the ELDX bullets. They perform very well. Same with the ELD match bullets. The only thing available for the 270 from Hornady is the 145 grain ELDX hunting bullet. This they recommend for larger game, elk and deer. This is their recommendation for that. The feet per second is 1741 at 1,000 yards. Energy is 976, and it drops 237 inches, which is almost 100. You see, it's almost 100 less than this one. This is a bigger, much bigger bullet, 35 grains heavier, but the 270 is a very flat shooting round. Let's move on. There's a lot more options for the 7mm-08 from Hornady. As you can see, there's 5 different options here. The 180 grain ELD match bullet, 796 BC, very impressive on the BC there. 1659 feet per second, 1100 pounds of energy, drops 327 there. Moving down to the 150 grain ELDX hunting round, 1638, 894 foot-pounds of energy, 279 inch drop there. And then the 162 grain ELDX, this is my personal favorite. This is what I hunt my elk with. This one is 1639 feet per second, 966 foot-pounds of energy, drops 295 inches. And then they have the 175 ELDX, 689 BC, 1604, 1050, drops 309. And then the ELD match down here, 670 BC, 1692, 1030, drops 287. So the average, obviously, there's only one bullet here, so it's 976 versus 1008. So fairly close there on the average. Obviously, you can, if we just picked one bullet and matched it there, you can see it would be, quite a bit more on a couple of these. But it's kind of insignificant, that amount of energy difference there. Let's move on to the Nosler load data. So we have the 100 grain Spitzer. I started with everything available for both calibers from Nosler. Well, everything available in the AccuBond and partition. Starting with 100 grain, 343 foot-pounds of energy for the most accurate load. These are normally conservative loads. It's the most accurate tested that Nosler has done. So 343 foot-pounds of energy, 1,000 yards. Now on these 270, I did include the 200-yard ballistics. I did not include that in the 7mm-08 for this comparison. I have that in a few other videos if you want to see that. But I did average it at the bottom of this so you can see the averages. But I included it here just so you get an idea. 1,000 yards is pretty extreme for hunting. 200 yards, much more realistic. I would say my personal experience hunting elk, it's been between 200 to 600 yards in that range. 200 yards, 1734 foot-pounds of energy, only 2.2 inch drop, 2795. So you can see that bullet, even little 100 grain bullet, still has a lot of energy at 200 yards. And now the max load, even more energy, 403 foot-pounds, 1347, and then 1,992 foot-pounds at 200 yards, moving almost 3,000 feet per second. Move down to the 110. You bump up a couple hundred foot-pounds of energy for the most accurate load, 2108 foot-pounds for 200 yards. Down here you have 563 foot-pounds of energy for the max load at 1,000 yards and 2227 at 200 yards. Moving down the 130 grain AccuBond, 658 foot-pounds of energy for the most accurate, 677 foot-pounds of energy for max load. Now look at the drops. I haven't been comparing the drops. 229 inches drop. That is really low for 1,000 yards. Here, the 140 grain AccuBond down here, 724 foot-pounds at 1,000 yards for the most accurate load, 794, almost 800 foot-pounds for the max load there. And of course this will vary depending on your rifle. This might end up being the most accurate load for your particular rifle. This is the most accurate recipe that Nosler has tested. However, it will vary by the rifle you have. So you could be anywhere in between these two probably. Moving down, the 140 grain partition. Now the AccuBond is a newer version of the partition. They tried to make it perform fairly similar as far as terminal performance goes, but it is using the new AccuBond technology, and it is a sleeker, better design, higher efficiency there, ballistic coefficient, so it produces more. So you can see here 140 grain, same weight, same recipe. This one produces 588 foot-pounds versus 724, and then 642 versus 794. 150 grain AccuBond long range. This is their most efficient bullet, highest coefficient of 625 for all of the bullets here that I pulled the data for. All of them that are available from Nosler in the AccuBond and partition line. This one is 930 foot-pounds of energy, the most accurate, 1,040. So over 110 foot-pounds or 110 foot-pounds more at the max load. 254 inch drop there, and then of course 200 yards, 2137 foot-pounds of energy, 2351 there. 150 grain partition, again, you can see the difference in the BC. I did list it here. Quite a bit difference there. I did that just to show how much more efficient these are than the partitions are, at least on the ballistic coefficient. 588 foot-pounds of energy at 1,000 yards for the most accurate, 707 there for the max load at 1,000 yards. And then last, the heaviest bullet you can get in the partition line for the 270 Winchester is the 160 grain partition, and it's not a very efficient bullet. The ballistic coefficient actually dropped to about, I think it was 435 or 445, I can't remember, but it dropped below 592 foot-pounds there, 632, and you compare that to 707 there, so quite a bit more, and the drop is also about 40 inches more there. Moving on to the 7mm-08, the smallest partition available for that round from Nosler is 140 grain partition. The max and the most accurate load were the exact same data, 613 foot-pounds, 304 inch drop. And then same thing with the AccuBond, exact same load data there for Nosler, 727 foot-pounds, 1592 feet per second, 282 inch drop. So there you can see same load, same everything, just different style bullet, produces 114 foot-pounds of energy more, just based on the ballistic coefficient of the bullet itself. 150 grain partitions, 598 there, 661 for the max load. The AccuBond long range 150 grain is 882 foot-pounds of energy and 977 foot-pounds for the max load. And then down here you have the Nosler 160 grain partition. It's 591 there, 694. Again, the partition isn't as efficient as the AccuBonds, especially not the AccuBond long range. Here's the 160 grain AccuBond. Here you can see it's the same recipe as up here for both of them. And 39 grains, it is a very conservative load. 686 there compared to 591, so almost 100 foot-pounds different just based on the bullet style. 811 foot-pounds there. And then here's the 168 grain long range there, 872 foot-pounds here, 1031 foot-pounds there. And then the 175 grain Nosler partition, 659 and 748 foot-pounds for the max load. And then they have this guy down here, the Nosler AccuBond long range, 175 grain. This is pushing it for the 7mm-08 shell. That 308 case is just not very big, and this is a long projectile. So you're at 890 foot-pounds for the most conservative, 1019 for the max load. Now here are the averages real quick for this video. The 270, the most accurate load energy at 1,000 yards, was 618 foot-pounds. The max load at 1,000 yards was 682. For the 7mm-08, 724 and 819. Keep in mind that the 7mm-08 just didn't have the smaller bullets. It's a thicker diameter bullet, and the Nosler just doesn't make those lighter 100 grain, 110, 130 grain bullets for the 7mm-08. And so that is affecting the 270's performance slightly and dropping that a little bit. It'd probably be a little closer if you compare similar weights, 140 grain versus 140 grain. It'd be similar there. But the big advantage that the 7mm-08 has is it has a much wider range of bullets available for it, and it also has the ability to load heavier bullets, so you get more energy that way. Now here, I mentioned I wanted to include the drop here. 270 Winchester most accurate loads. The average drop was 291 inches. Compare that to 347 inches there. So you're 56 inches more drop here versus the 270. And then it's not as big of a deal, or not as big of a separation there. If you go to the max loads, 270 is 274 inch drop average at 1,000 yards. The 7mm-08 is 307, so you're 33 inches difference there, which is, you know, it's 2.5 feet, almost 3 feet difference there in a drop, but that's at 1,000 yards, so it's pretty insignificant, very easy to adjust for that. But the 270 is a very flat shooting round. 200 yards here, the max energy there. You can see the 270 with its lower ballistic coefficient, it actually performs better at closer ranges than the 7mm-08 does. So at 200 yards, average energy for the most accurate loads was 2,038 versus 1,909 foot-pounds of energy from the 7mm-08. So you're 120 or 127 difference there. And then you have the max loads, 2,198 foot-pounds versus 2,085 foot-pounds there. So about 130 foot-pounds difference there. So that gives you an idea of what the ballistic coefficient can do as far as long range. You can see it reverses slightly as you go out farther. Probably about 700 yards, 600, 700 yards is where it starts reversing there. So if you're going to be shooting farther distances, you want to save on powder, and you're going to reload, of course. This is all reloading here. You want to save on powder, you don't want as much recoil, and you're going to be shooting longer distances, go with the 7mm-08. If you're going to be shooting closer distances and you want the most energy you can and the flattest shooting, go with the 270. You can't really go wrong with either one of these calibers. They're both excellent and they both perform very well. That'll wrap it up for my comparison here, part 2 of the 7mm-08 versus the 270 Winchester.